Hi, I'm Pete Holloway. I'm a retired financial advisor and a retired certified financial planner. And as always, it's my great pleasure to welcome you to On Money. I think most of our viewers know what Show of Hands is. It's a program put on by Wheeling Heritage in which several businesses get to compete for a good bit of money. The most recent winners were what's known as the Pine Room Podcast, and I thought I'd invite them on to talk about a couple things, what they do, what a podcast is, and so forth. My guests are next to me, Jub Delbrugge. He's from Wheeling, graduated from Wheeling Park High, and got a degree in visual communications and design from West Liberty. And next to him is his twin brother, Jarrett, also Wheeling native, Wheeling Park High, and got his degree in sports management and marketing from West Liberty, and is currently working on his master's degree in business administration. And I want to thank you both for being on with us. Okay, tell us how and why you got started.
Yeah, so the Pine Room as a gathering space has kind of been this metamorphizing, evolving location. We've started from just a couple of guys, 4 guys around a fire pit, watching one TV, watching one game, usually the Pirates, and over the span of probably a decade, that's moved to, 12 guys watching 7 different games and on 7 different TVs. And, we watched sports for the longest time, and my dad has probably put in more time and money and energy into the actual space itself than I know. But we kept, improving the place. And to be honest with you, as far as the podcast goes, it eventually got to the point where my dad was worried that guys were going to get bored, which I don't know how anybody would have gotten bored with the setup. So one day we were taking a walk in the morning. I was finishing my degree, and I spent a lot of my nights up till the crack of dawn, and we happened to be up at the same time right when he was waking up, and we took a walk and we started talking about ideas, and for some reason I don't know how the antithesis of the podcast came up, but we eventually settled on doing a podcast. And I was going to take my degree, and I was working on a project for branding. I was building a brand from the floor up, and that was my final project. So I was going to run with that after I graduated, and I think I took this idea and I said, all right, let me see what we can do with this. And I put together like a 5 to 10 page packet of everything that we would need, requirements.
A business plan, essentially?
Yes, yeah, exactly. And I presented that to the group. We had a meeting far before we even, got on camera or got on the microphones, and I kind of just took that and ran with it.
That's great. Jared, tell us, how can people find this podcast?
So
let's start at the beginning. What's a podcast? There are people out there and that may not know what it is, and you can explain what it is.
I think, essentially, for us, really, it's just a bunch of friends sitting around talking about whatever. I don't know if you could.
So obviously, radio has been around for the longest time. And radio is talk radio is guys sitting around or whoever's sitting around talking about whatever different topics, and basically that's what we do. But it's more for recording. You can go watch us whenever, or listen to us whenever. We do a lot of different stuff, but yeah, it's essentially talk radio. Guys sitting around, almost like guys in a barbershop talking about what's going on in the day, things that are happening, things that we bring guests on, talk about highlight things that are going on in the area, talk about we had Michael Grove on, for instance, who
pitching for the Dodgers.
Yeah, pitching for the Dodgers. Good friend of ours. We had him on and talked about some stuff. But yeah, it's just basically talk radio. It's guys sitting around talking about the events of the day, events of the week, what's going on, news, and like I said, highlighting different people and different
When
places.
it's nice, it's different from radio that we don't have to worry about saying something or time restrictions. We can do whatever we want, really, and take breaks when we want. So I think that's kind of the big difference for us. Is we do have a radio show, but it's nicer to be on the podcast without any restrictions. But to find us, though, we're on every platform, such as Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Podcast, all the podcast platforms. We're also on YouTube too, which you can not only listen but watch. We have a really impressive set that we kind of have set up at, and you can watch there. And I think
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, they're anywhere.
Well, let's step back again, because just for the audience, the nice thing for me is the audience can't see it, but back here we've got camera, we've got director, we've got some pretty sophisticated electronic equipment. How did you guys get that? Because you can't just walk in and go down to the Walmart or something, buy some mics and go off. You got to find a place. You got to get the equipment. You've got to set up a way to get that podcast on the air where people can find it. How did y'all do that?
So I've always been into the kind of production. My major's in graphic design and visual communication design, but I've always been interested in broadcasting and entertainment and putting stuff out on the internet. But really, what it took was a lot of research. I'd look about a lot of stuff about what we needed, about what was going to be advantageous for us to get, opposed to something that might cost us more money and not be as useful. So I had to really spec out equipment. It took a while, but and it was an investment. We took some money out and really had to invest into some high quality gear, because my big thing is that I think the human attention span is like 8.25 seconds, and you need to capture anybody's attention within that span, and the higher quality that you can produce, the better chance you have of keeping an audience. So I really focused that. It was an investment, and it's still an investment, and we're still dealing with that. And our show of hands win was a huge, helped us out a lot, and is going to help us out with getting some new stuff. But yeah, this production is very familiar to me when we sat down here. So yeah, it took a lot of research and some planning, but
now, do you all have advertisers to help cover these costs?
Yeah. I mean,
as in like.
Someone is going to pay you money to get their.
Yes, we do have. We have a number of different sponsorships, actually. So I mean,
if you want to feel free to broadcast.
Yeah, I mean, we have.
They're helping you
with Generations Restaurant, obviously in Wheeling. We actually have our own Pine Room Burger there. You can go down and get. They've been really helpful with us. We've had a couple shows with them, live shows with high school sports teams there. Figueretti's Restaurant, they're a sponsor. They've given us they hooked us up with some sauce the other day, so that was cool.
Yeah, we had Enzio Figueretti. He was on the show a couple weeks ago. We work with River City. We've had some live shows down there. We're actually having a Halloween live show come here in a couple weeks, so that's interesting.
Now, the show's principally been about high school sports. Do you ever go into politics or what's happening locally or any of that kind of stuff, or is it exclusively focused on the sports?
Well, really, our live shows are specifically, or particularly in the past couple of months, have been high school sports. Our actual podcast, we talk about sports a good bit, but we cover a vast variety of different things. Can you give
me maybe some recent subjects that you've done?
Yeah, we.
I'll say that it definitely did stem from sports, and then it just kind of went from there, and we just were kind of going, and then now we have segments on the podcast. We have This Week in History, so we'll talk about historic events like hundreds of years ago, however long ago. We have our Shakespearean phrase of the week, so we'll go into a Shakespeare phrase that you would have never thought he came up with. And then we have like a segment called Hot Pit Cold Mug, so that's essentially our hot takes that guys can come up with and kind of get some stuff stirring up. So there's a bunch of different things that we go into besides sports.
Yeah.
Now, when you do live shows, is there audience interaction? In other words, can people in the audience stand up and say, "What do you think of this?" or I don't like what you guys are saying, or whatever? Yeah.
So, we try to limit like if we're in the middle of our show, we don't want people yelling up at us, but we do sometimes we'll get to some of our segments and we'll throw it out to the audience, or sometimes we'll do like a trivia segment, or we'll do some kind of interaction, like you said. We'll try to get them involved. We always are interested in people emailing us. We love when people email us about topics they want to listen to or talk about. if they have something controversial they want to bring up or something they don't like about the podcast. We love every kind of feedback, and we actually to goad our audience into sending our email, because for the longest time I'd say email us and no one emailed us. So I said, whoever emails us, we're going to give you a free shirt.
Well, we'll try and run the email across below you guys to get you a little. I've decided I want to do a podcast on X, Y, or Z, whatever. What do I do?
Well, I mean,
there got to be people out there who want to get their opinions out or just want to cover a specific thing, and what the heck, let's try a podcast. So how would they start?
Well, I know for us, again, it was a kind of a group of people that wanted to do something different, but I think to start a podcast, I mean, obviously it's an investment, like we said.
Do you need an FCC license? Do you have to go through that kind of rigmarole?
You don't. I mean, anybody and their mother can sit down and do a podcast, whether it's going to be high quality or not. I mean, that's up to the people. But I mean, you can sit down. We could sit my phone right here and record ourselves doing a podcast, and that you can upload that. I think it does cost a little bit of money to upload that to different platforms, but anybody can start a podcast. If you have an idea about something you want to do, I actually talked to somebody the other day. They were interested in starting a podcast with a friend, and if you want to be high quality and you want to have a production like what's around here, you've got to invest a little bit. And if you want,
where do you find the equipment?
Really anywhere. I mean, I get now Amazon is such a convenience now, but
that was a big thing.
I do a lot of stuff with B&H. B&H is a website that sells a lot of equipment, a lot of camera equipment, microphones, stuff like that. Yes, but
and then just recently you went to a local store. Where was it? You got the speakers.
Yeah, I actually went out to Rent-A-Center over in Bridgeport. Went over there.
Whatever works.
For a set of speakers to rent. We're still speccing some speakers that we want to buy.
Now, you're moving, you've said you've done this at various venues. How much equipment do you actually have to move? Because there's this physical, it's not just cameras, microphones, you're going to have cameras, you got wires, all sorts of things.
That's a process that I will be honest, that we dread. It's a process, especially with our desk that we use. It's a big wood. It looks good, but it's heavy and it's just it's annoying to move. But we have to move the desk. I mean, cameras, tripods, microphones, wires, audio boards, all that, which we thank goodness he has a truck and my dad has a truck that we can move it. But it is a process.
Well, for the new podcaster who's thinking about this thing, what can you give us a couple examples of things to do and not to do when you're setting up your podcast?
Yeah, so I mean, the first thing that I mean, if you're motivated about something or you're interested in something, you have passion about something, that's number one. Like you don't want to sit down and just, I'm trying to find the correct word to say here, to just partially go into something like that you're half interested in. I mean, you got to have some sort of passion and to do this and bring a little bit of excitement and something interesting to the table. But I mean, you don't need thousands of dollars of equipment. I mean, if you have a good idea and you got at least this, a semi-quality, way of getting it on to the internet, then I mean, anybody can sit down and do it.
Okay, something not to do.
Ramble.
Yes.
Ramble on. You don't want to bore your audience. It's something that I think that we kind of do a good job of.
How many of you? Is it just the two of you, or is there a whole?
No, we got a whole crew of I think 9 of us now.
Yeah, it ranges.
All at one time?
It ranges. Sometimes, we try to limit it at 7.
Well, even so, is there a referee that's saying your turn, or I'm used to one person, so having two. It's
so the first podcast we ever did, it was funny because you were talking about the first show you ever did. The first podcast we ever did, we were down at iHeartRadio at the studio, and it was rough. It was rough, and it still hasn't gone out anywhere, and I'll keep hold of that for the longest time.
So for the new podcaster, you might want to have a couple rehearsals.
Yeah, and your first podcast is not going to go great. great. It's not going to go great. You got to learn kind of, especially if you're going to do it with other people, you got to learn to let the other person talk. You know, you don't want to cross talk, especially if you're upwards of 5 guys, you don't have 2 conversations going on at once, which we had in the first podcast. And I listened back to it, and after the first one, I was like, oh boy, I don't know if this is going to work. So we went back and we talked about some notes.
I've said that for a number of years.
Yeah, but really the main thing is just if you have, like we said, we have 7 guys, and we do a good job at delegating. Like if guys talking, we make it a point to just focus on them, and we try to keep it so we're not crossing over each other. But
Yeah, I guess that's kind of like the advantage that we have, and like you said, the don'ts is don't ramble on, and I think that was an advantage that we have is that with the 7 guys, we can bounce from topic to topic, and guys have different opinions on things that make it fresh and interesting every episode, really.
Have you ever gotten any heat from the audience? I mean, you said this, and I don't agree with you. And
not yet. I'm still kind of looking, oddly enough as that
watch
is.
out what you wish for.
I'm still kind of looking forward to that. I know it's not like I don't want it every day. I don't want to have everybody mad at me. But if we get somebody that disagrees, I enjoy that kind of debate. I enjoy hearing from other people and other people's perspective.
Okay, and again, it's principally sports, high school sports, or
Well, so our live show,
Well, we actually have a radio show on WKKX every Monday from 2 to 3 p.m. where we specifically talk about high school sports, regional sports, where that's kind of the focus. But really, the podcast itself is more. We'll hit on sports a little bit, not high school sports, but kind of what the main points in sports today, and then like we said, just kind of whatever's going on in the world.
I think back to I think you asked something that we talked about this past week. We actually, for some reason, I have a very obscure. I'm not a sports guy. I am far away from sports, so I rely on these guys.
Your brother's agreeing with you.
Yeah. I'm not sports oriented at all. So I bring a lot of obscure knowledge, obscure facts. I think this week we were talking about spelunking, like people going down in tight caves and spelunking, and I had some stories that I had listened to about that. We're talking about just all sorts of different history stuff. Like we talk about aliens sometimes. We talk about space, and we are because it's Halloween. We're actually going to take some of the guys, and we're going to go to. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Bel Air House. It's over in Bel Air. It's a notorious haunted house, not like an attraction, like where people say ghosts are. So we're going to try to take the podcast over there and do a show and do stuff like that.
Good luck catching something.
Yeah.
Where do you guys want to be? And let's do this. 10 years from now, you're probably going to be doing something different. From that vantage point, 10 years out, and you're looking back on what you did, what would you want to have accomplished?
That's a good question. I feel like for me personally, and I know him too. We kind of we've had this idea of we've both been kind of obsessed since I can remember with YouTube and people making jobs out of things that they love to do, like whether it's playing video games or podcasting or whatever. And I think that kind of been a motivator for both of us, is kind of where we want to go is hopefully one day we can really make this into a job and something that we can
So if, again, someone wanted to start their podcast, they could call you and say, would you give us some ideas and thoughts?
Oh, of course. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
I think
capitalist that I am, feel free to charge them.
Yes. Exactly.
I'll take that and run with it then.
There you go.
Yeah.
But anyway, people could call you up and say,
Sure.
Can you walk us through the getting started?
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah. I think that I think it's great because I don't know anybody around here that has done a podcast. So really, the closest thing that I've had was people doing radio. So that was the people that I had to go to beforehand. I went to some people around here that were running the radio, and that was the closest thing that I could come to getting some information as to what we wanted to do. But yeah, I mean, if anybody wants to get a hold of me, I'm not great with my phone, but yeah, I can. I'd be more than.
And the thing about the internet is that you might have, because we've gotten emails from Tokyo.
Okay.
from West Liberty.
Yeah.
So again, someone might be listening to you in the Ukraine or whatever.
Yeah.
And so that it's not just the local stuff. So
Yeah.
that's got to be a little bit intimidating. But,
Yeah.
but fun.
That's kind of one back to your question about goals. Was I want to eventually start to really spread out. I would love to get an audience, outside of this area, to bring, not only, just to reach them, but to bring attention to this area and so on. But I think we can look at our analytics and see where people listen to stuff.
Oh, you're able to see then how many people have watched and
Yeah.
listened
Yeah.
and where they're from. That's cool.
Yeah, I think we had
where
for
were
some
they
reason we got a lot of listeners in Bulgaria. I don't know why. I don't know why.
I'm not going to touch that.
Yeah.
But if it's definitely one of my goals. Is definitely I would love at the beginning of this. My idea was to just show we have such a great group of guys. We have a really good group of guys, and we've been gathering for 10 years now, if not more. And somebody brought it up the other day. In 10 years, we've had maybe 12 guys gather every Saturday, and we've not one time had an argument or a disagreement that has ended poorly.
That's no fun.
Wow, yeah. Believe me, we disagree with each other, and
Oh, I'm sure.
we nip at each other and do that kind of stuff. But we're such a good group of guys.
Oh, that's terrific.
And I would love to show just the world these guys, because I think it's such a good group, and we got a lot to offer.
And it really, it's like, I mean, obviously me and him are family, and my dad are family, but really the whole group is, and it's cliche, but it really is a big family.
Now tell me again. I pull out my cell phone and I go to what app?
So you can go, depending on what you listen to, or what you listen to your music on, or or your podcast on. You can go to Spotify, Amazon Podcast, Apple Podcast. You can go on to iHeartRadio and listen to our podcast. You can find us on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. If you look up at the Pine Room Podcast, you'll find us there.
At the Pine Room Podcast.
At
the Pine Room.
At the Pine Room
At the Pine Room
Podcast. You'll find us
yeah.
anywhere.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, cool. I hope this delivers you a new audience and a
I
bigger
hope
audience,
so.
and then they will tell their friends, and we'll expand it out.
I hope so. I really appreciate you having us
Well, I
on.
want to thank you
Thanks for
for
having
telling
us.
us about this, and I'm sure there are a couple people out there right now going, let me try this out.
I hope
but
so.
Congratulations on your win, and
Thank you.
congratulations on putting together something so interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And I'm Pete Holloway. We'll be talking to you next week. I hope you all have a great week.
Hello, I'm Levi Phillips, a senior medical laboratory science student at West Liberty University, and I'm going to show you what it's like to go on a clinical rotation at WVU Medicine, Wheeling Hospital. So now we're in the blood bank, and we have all the blood for patients that could be used for traumas, transfusion therapy, if they need platelets, fresh frozen plasma, blood product. This is where you would go to get it. So this instrument here is the Vision. It does forward and reverse typing on blood. You get A positive, and you get the type, antibody panel, antibody identification. So next we're going to head over to chemistry, where we process most of the samples. We receive our samples right here, and they get all sorted out. And then we can take the sample from here. And most of the time, we'll put them in here to their desired location, and then the instrument will pick it up, and it'll move it along the track, and it'll take it to some of the analyzers over here. So in the chemistry area, we receive samples from in-house, out-of-house patients, and what we do is we can have complete metabolic tests, metabolic panels, electrolytes, just all the basic chemistries that you would get on a routine specimen. Next, we're going to move over to hematology. So now, in hematology, we get a lot of blood smears. When we look at a blood smear, we're looking for white blood cells, red blood cell morphology, white blood cell differential, so neutrophilic eggs, bands, lymphocytes, monocytes, stuff like that, anything out of the norm. Now we're going to go across the hallway and visit microbiology. So here we have some agar plates. This is blood agar. We grow into a culture. We could take a urine sample and streak this, and then we'll do diagnostic tests on it, and we'll find out what bacteria is growing in that sample. That's a gram-negative rod, probably Klebsiella pneumo. This is the walk-in incubator, and it stays at 37 degrees Celsius, other known as body temperature, because that's what a lot of microorganisms grow at, is body temperature. CO2 incubator, where microorganisms that grow best with CO2 are kept in here and grown in here. This is where the blood cultures are kept, all sequentially. So this is the zero pressure room, or the isolation room, and in here we have the hood. So if we're working with bacteria that's airborne or something like that, everything goes in through the vent and not out through the doors. So there's only air coming in, not going out. So we'll take our loop, get a little loop full of our sample, and then we'll streak for isolation. We streak for isolation so we can get isolated colonies, so we can pull them off there, and it'll help us identify that bacteria. Thank you for checking out the Medical Laboratory Science program. For more information, go to westliberty.edu/MLS.